Hey guys, this is Megan Ann with Lattes and Llamas. We're doing a quick tutorial on mosaic stitches today. We're going to do a refresher of your basic mosaic as well as one special stitch, the elongated stitch, which is what makes these fabulous mermaid scales. First, I want to talk just a hot minute about mosaic knitting. Mosaic knitting is a type of color work that functions by working with only one color in your hand at a time. You work across the row in one color, slipping stitches that will be worked in the other color, and then you work back across with color 2, knitting the stitches that you slipped. We're working in garter ridges, which means that we're going to knit all the way across with one color and then all the way back before knitting across with the other color. Also, at points in this shawl, you'll be asked to knit more than one garter ridge in one color before picking up the next color and working across. When you do that, when you've got 2 or more garter ridges in a single color, you need to carry that contrast color up the side of your work. I like to do this by knitting the last stitch of the wrong side row of each of those garter ridges that are going to be multiple garter ridges of the same color at once. So here the blue. At the end of each wrong side blue row, I held both yarns together to knit that last stitch. On the first row, the first stitch of the next row, that same stitch, I'm going to drop that contrast color and just keep knitting with the blue. That ties the contrast color to the edge of your work and keeps you from having long loops running up the side, which can affect blocking and overall drape. So let's go ahead and get started. For this pattern, I'm going to be working mosaic across with green. We'll call that my main color. So I'm going to work across with my main color. I'm going to slip every 4th blue stitch. There is a detailed instruction for this swatch in the body of this post. But as I work across, unlike in traditional mosaic knitting, where I would slip that stitch and then slip it again on the other side to be worked with blue, I'm only going to slip it on the right side. So I slipped that blue stitch. I'm going to knit 3 stitches, slip a blue stitch. I'm holding the working yarn behind when I slip it. You don't want it in front. And then I knit to the end of the row. I'm going to turn and work back across in my main color. Since this is one of those places where I'm going to work 2 garter ridges before picking up my blue again, when I get to the last stitch of this row, I'm going to hold both colors together to knit it and then drop the blue when I knit back across the other side. And again, here I slipped it on the right side. I'm not going to slip it on the wrong side. I just knit right across. Knit that last stitch. So I just hold both yarns together, knit the stitch, turn my work. I'm going to drop the blue yarn again. I'm not using it right now. I'm going to treat these 2 as one stitch, knitting the 2 colors together, work across. Turn my work back to the end, and again on the last stitch of this row, I'm going to go ahead and hold both my colors together. On the next row, I'll be switching to blue, but even so, I'm going to hold them both together just so that blue stays nice and loose on the edge of the fabric. If you don't have that contrast color kind of woven in as you go to keep it loose, it can pull too tight when you start the next row with blue and cause your work to pucker. Where's the fun in that? So now I'm going to switch to the blue and I'm going to work my elongated stitches. Elongated stitches are abbreviated as either K1B or K1E. E in that case would stand for elongated, B stands for below. I prefer to use the K1B abbreviation. It reminds me that when I'm knitting an elongated stitch, I've got to pull up a loop from row or rows below. In this case, that blue stitch that we slipped 2 garter ridges ago is going to serve as an indicator for me. So I don't need to fuss and worry and go, okay, 1, 2, 3, and here's where I put my needle. I know every time I'm going to be working my elongated stitches through those blue stitches that I slipped. Gives a nice indication. All right. So I'm knitting over to it. In this case, I knit my 2 edge stitches. Now I'm ready for my elongated stitch. To work an elongated stitch, I'm going to slip my needle through an indicated stitch 1 or more rows below the row I'm working on. I'm running it through that blue stitch. I'm grabbing my yarn on the other side and drawing up a loop. So really, I've knit through that stitch. I leave it right here on my right hand needle, knit the next stitch. This pattern calls for 3 elongated stitches in a row. That's 2 and a third. I'll knit 1 in between, and then I'm ready to do another elongated stitch into that slipped blue one. Draw up a loop, knit 1, draw up a loop, knit 1, draw up a loop, knit 1. I'm going to knit to the end of my row. I'm going to turn and work back across these stitches, treating those loops like regular knit stitches that I'll knit into. We've increased here 6 stitches on this row by drawing up those loops. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'll decrease them on the next row. So I'm just knitting straight across, knitting into those loops like they're regular knit stitches. I'm not going to hold my yarns together at the end of this row since I'm only doing 1 garter ridge in blue before switching back to green. Turn my work. Here on this row, I'm going to go ahead and decrease the stitches that I increased now that I've got those fabulous scales. So I pick up my main color again. Knit the 2 edge stitches on my swatch. Obviously in the pattern it'll tell you how many to knit, but I'm back over to my elongated stitches, and I'm going to knit 2 together 3 times, 1 for each of those loops I drew up. Knit 3 together, or knit 2 together. Knit 2 together, and knit 2 together. Knit to the end of the row, turn your work, knit back across, and you can just use this moment to double check. We started with 12 stitches, and at this point we should be back to exactly 12 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right. And I've got some beautiful mermaid scales on my work. Come on back next week. We'll be releasing the first clue of Call of the Siren, and you'll be ready to go find your own mermaid.